First off, we are here to talk about the song Church Girl, Beyonce's new song, Church Girl, which comes from the Renaissance album. Of course, the Renaissance album officially dropped last Friday. And yeah, pew, 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 pew. And of course, like folks went crazy as we expect. It's Beyonce. You know, people excited. I think she had everybody super excited over the weekend for the album, and I swear, like my Instagram timeline was nothing but Renaissance, 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 Renaissance. So the interesting thing is, if I can jump back though, seeing the track list that came out like a couple weeks before, the song Church Girl was one that I was interested in hearing, just because, you know, I've been following Beyonce since like Destiny's Child days. They were formerly known as like church girls. They're Southern wholesome girls, yada, yada, yada. So I kind of had an idea of what I thought the song would be. And then hearing it, I was like, I wonder how church girls actually feel about this. So when I saw your post today about it, I was like, bet. So I'm trying to get these questions in because I want to know, you know, how you feel. So I guess to
Yeah.
just kick it off, to start off, initial impressions of the song, and if you saw the track list before, was this a song that you were like just initially drawn to by the title, or did you just not think about it?
So the first part is my initial impression was kind of twofold. 'Cause obviously, I'm a creative. I'm a former musician. So you listen, one, for the appreciation of music, for the appreciation of
Mm-hmm.
production, and just the art
Yeah,
of it,
yeah,
right? And then you also listen as a fan. You listen to
right,
her voice, you listen to the
right,
lyrics. So it's like a mixed bag. It's almost like sometimes you have to listen twice with two different
yeah,
things in
yeah,
mind. So when I first listened to it and I heard the Clark Sisters sample, I'm a huge fan of like a good sample and like
yeah.
flipping it because I'm like waiting to see how you do it. Like I feel like and we had this conversation like offline. I like how Kanye uses samples. There's some artists that I feel like are really good users
Mm-hmm,
of
mm-hmm.
samples, and I feel like she is one of them. And so when I heard what she did with the Clark Sisters sample, I was like, oh my gosh, I did not expect it to take the turn that it took with the
Yeah.
beat drop. So that was what first grabbed me. Then when I heard the
Mm-hmm.
lyrics, that's when I started to like tear up because when people were doing the kind of clickbait of it, you just hear the
Yeah.
chorus,
Drop it
when the
like a
drop it like a
yeah,
body,
yeah,
drop it like
yeah.
a body. But when you hear the words leading up to the
Mm-hmm.
lyrics, I feel like that's the meat of
Mm-hmm.
it. And then the payoff is the results of the feelings from what happened during the lyric piece. So when I heard the lyrics, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, she gets it. Like I get what she's trying to say. I'm picking up what she's
Yeah,
laying down, and I'm
yeah.
here for it. And then when I did see the track list, your second part of the question, that did jump out at
Okay,
me as
gotcha,
well.
gotcha. So for you, and you know, art is obviously subjective. You know, people hear art and take different things from it. It'll have personally, I'm interested in hearing your perspective because I'm sure it will hit you differently as a church girl than it would me. What does what is a church girl? What does the song like mean to you in terms of being a church girl?
Ooh, I'm probably gonna cry during this live at some point, you guys. I'm just letting you know now, and I make no apology about that. But I've just been a ball of tears this
Mm-hmm.
whole week so far, so that's not surprising that I might cry today. Um, what it meant to me, I feel like, and what Beyonce is good about, she's good about giving a voice to
Yeah.
certain things where you can listen to like, oh, Beyonce gets it, she
Mm-hmm.
understands, like whether it's talking about heartbreak or it's anger or black pride, like she is the voice of
Mm-hmm.
many. And in this song, I felt like she was a voice for me. When you talk about like what the song meant to me as a church girl, former church girl, I feel like the church girl phrase has a stigma
Mm-hmm.
on it. And there are multiple definitions of a church girl, in
Okay.
my opinion. And I think the definition that she was speaking to is just a church girl that's had it. She has
Okay.
had it, and at this point, she's like
Okay.
epic and whatever she dealt with as a church girl, and she just wanted to like either lean into the stereotype of the negative stereotype of a church girl. She either was using this song to choose to lean
Mm-hmm.
into it, or the fallout of the pressure of being
The church girl.
the church girl. This was the fallout as, you know what? I'm darned if I do, darned if I don't. Let me just go to the club and shake it and turn up because, like, I'm doing the best I can here. And, like, I'm feeling the judgment when I'm in these walls. And so how I am going to release it, I'm going to turn up. So it just depends on the type of church girl that you are, and, as far as how the song, what you think she's trying to say.
For you specifically, and this might be me pushing, but for you specifically, which one of those do you fall into? Do you fall into both of them?
Oh, no, I definitely don't mind answering that. So, well, first let me say what I think there's like 3 definitions of church girl. I would say one is the stereotypical church girl where she's in church, but she's there to just catch a good Christian man. She intentionally dresses provocative when she's in church. You know, she's, you know, sleeping with someone on the musical team.
Not on the musical team.
On the low, or she's perfectly trying to distract, and like she's the church girl that really is like
okay.
So that's the one definition. That's the stereotype.
All right.
There is a church girl that she means well, but she's young and she's still trying to figure it out. So she is figuring out life because she's most likely in her teens and 20s. So she's trying to figure out life, relationships, her relationship with God, and her identity out at the same time. And she doesn't always nail it. So you may see her in church and maybe the length of her skirt is a little bit questionable, but she's seen as it being intentional. And instead of giving the truth in love, she's villainized as the one that is intentionally trying to cause someone to stumble when she's really just trying to figure out curves that maybe she's just developed because she's like, she was trying to explore. Ministry, now she's an adult and she's trying to figure herself out. And then there's the one that I consider me, the one that is trying to be the model church girl. There are expectations. Church girl is expected to present herself as a potential good wife or even a potential good future first lady, just like marriage material. She's trying to present herself as dedicated to God, and that needs to manifest through her dedication to her church. Because if you say you love God like you do, then there's no reason that you shouldn't be in the choir, on the praise team, helping with the kids, being a Sunday school teacher, all while looking good and classy at the same time because you're there to serve God and try to catch a man. You're trying to complete this picture of what the ideal church girl can be, and you kind of lose yourself in the midst of that, or it becomes a tug of war with the rest of your life. For me, when I was, and everybody knows, like, I think for a while, church girl and me was synonymous. You know, I accepted Christ into my life at age 12. I immediately started evangelizing at 12 or 13 years old. I would type out my custom tracks at 12 years old, and I was going out alone because I was a latchkey kid. I would get home from school, and I would go to the laundromat, go to the corner store. I'm passing out.
Get this word.
Like I was all in.
You gonna get this word.
I was all in. Immediately when I was at church, I'm always on the praise team and the choir at the same time. You know, I eventually became a church administrator. I eventually was one of the leadership team of a campus ministry. I led a praise dance group. Like me and church, church girl and me. And so when you have that background, and then you're trying to be this model church girl, but at the same time, I'm in college. I joined a sorority, Delta Sigma Theta, and I felt like there was a tug of war because you're a church girl, then you shouldn't be at no fraternity parties. You shouldn't be at any sorority parties. What? And I was almost like guilt I took on myself and guilt from others. And sometimes I felt like I had to choose because a church girl shouldn't be going out. You know, you should be throwing your CDs in the trash in the
CD breaking parties. I've been there. Yeah.
So it was a really awkward, and it was probably the worst time of my life, I would say. And I felt like a lot of my friendships were lost because I was not all in. Like some of the sorority relationships that I was building they would reach out to me to come spend time, but I can't. I gotta go to church. I can't. I go to
Yeah.
Bible study, and make you feel like the worst, worse than worse if you
Yeah.
miss one.
Yeah.
And they're trying to connect with me and grow as sorority sisters, and obviously we've bonded over our initiation, our pledging process, and they want to continue that. Then also there's this campus ministry, and there's a young man that I want to show my dedication to our relationship and to the campus ministry and to
Mm-hmm.
God. And so I'm torn between trying to always show up here and show up here. And I just felt like I wasn't pleasing
Yeah.
anyone
Yeah.
fully. And then I equated that to not pleasing God.
Mm.
And so I almost started to resent the church girl thing until I pivoted and defined what my relationship with God and how I spend my time, what that looks
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
I know that was a
That's
lot.
good. So it's interesting knowing your story, your journey, knowing that you got saved when you were very young, remembering the conversations that we would even have about God and even the things that you did, like being a person that kind of looked and be like, dang, like she really, when people say like on fire for Jesus, like on fire for Jesus. So knowing that, and then that's kind of, I'll say my understanding of what a church girl is was kind of that. You're kind of like the model of that. Kind of hitting all the marks, doing everything. I'm super smart. I'm super saved. I'm super loyal, super dedicated. I'm humble. I docile. I don't, push my opinion on anybody. I kind of just, like that kind of, you've checked all the boxes in terms of like my understanding of it. It's interesting though, and you saying like the song kind of making you cry, and there I feel like from a production standpoint there's something that's happened with the song where it starts off with the Clark sister sample, which just says like, Lord, like I just want to be in your will, and then like the kind of beat drops, and so it goes into like this like like party type thing. What part of that, or if any part of that, do you think like it's intentional? It's kind of sending a message of you can be, or do you feel like it's sending a message of you can be in God's will and do this thing, or is it like a separation? Like, does it have to be separate?
Okay, so I will tell you the conclusion I have
Mm-hmm.
landed on and made peace with. But talking about the song and the lyric that specifically made me cry. Ooh, I'm not gonna cry
You
now.
good? You good? Go ahead.
Nope, not doing that.
You good? Go ahead.
The lyric that said,
You got it.
"Why did I agree to do this when I've been so emotional all week?" The lyric that said, "She ain't trying to hurt
Mm-hmm.
nobody. She's trying to do the best
Mm-hmm.
she can." That really
Yeah.
got me. Because I feel like not just me, but a lot of church girls has always assumed their intentions are
Yeah. Yeah.
bad. If she falls, or even if maybe what she wore to church, she has curves, they ain't going nowhere, and she's doing the best she can to try to camouflage them, but still dress and not be like
Old lady.
50
Yeah.
years old. Or how maybe it's always assumed that she is trying to be promiscuous or pull this person when it's really behind closed doors. We know the stereotypes, which really aren't not a lot of weight is put on them compared to the church girl ones. But the promiscuous musician or the greasy deacon that is taking advantage of the hug that he gives you
Mm-hmm.
after church. Those things are laughed
Mm-hmm.
off. No
Mm-hmm.
big deal. Or, oh, he's a man. He's expected to be slick. He's only a
Mm-hmm.
man, and you aren't helping the situation, sister so and so. You're being a
Yeah.
church girl. When behind closed doors, he's trying to get with
Yeah.
her. So she ain't trying to hurt nobody. She's trying to do the best she can. That was the one that
Yeah.
got me. Because I feel like it's not allowing church girls a space when they're in church to kind of to find their
Mm-hmm.
way, or say
Mm-hmm.
she has just accepted Christ in her life and she is still dying to the flesh, or she is still trying to produce fruit, produce her fruit to the spirit, or still learn, be disciples, and figure out like what conviction
Right.
is for her. It's like if she isn't this model church girl that y'all envision her to be, then obviously it's for malicious
Yeah.
intentions. So this, she's trying to do the best she can. I loved that. Now, as far as your question, as far as what this song is trying to say, that depends on which kind of church girl that it is. And I actually made like a little
Okay.
about this. Okay? I think maybe a big question is, how did the church girl end up in the club? You know, because it talks about, you know, shaking her
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
club. So it could be because she don't fully have that relationship with God, and you know, she's unapologetically, I'm not into God like that. I just go to church for my
Mm-hmm.
family. You know, I'm not really trying to change my life because, like black people, we're not monoliths. So church
Right.
girls are not
Right.
monoliths. So there maybe are some that's just like, look, I'm just here because this is where my friends be. I'm just here because where my family be, and I'm just
That's on a
here.
good
I'm
time.
not really. Me and God ain't really like that, so I'm gonna be here and I'm gonna be on the club and it just at the club and that
Yeah.
just is what it is. There are some church girls that are trying super hard, but because there is so much rejection or peace and stress, like Sunday morning, Wednesday night, it's showtime. I have to make sure I am being this model church girl. And the stress of it, the fallout is how I'm going to get my release is I'm going to go to the club and dance with my friends and have a glass of wine or
Right.
have a shot. Because this is just too much. And this is like one of my friends, Deanna, she was like, I would go to church. I mean, I would go out to the club or go dancing because the place on Sunday morning that was supposed to be my safe space
Mm-hmm.
isn't. So I'm going here to deal with what I have to face tomorrow morning
Yeah.
because that's my place of judgment. This is my place to release. So she ends up at the club
Yeah.
because of that. For me, the song represents freedom in the sense that I came to a place where, you know, obviously I'm older now. I had to figure out what that relationship with God looks like
Right.
for me and not allow relationship with God to be dictated by whatever conviction I have.
Mm-hmm.
But in my conviction, and even if I should be, me going to the club, that's okay because that means that I'm not going because of
Yeah.
somebody else. And when I get to a place where I do feel convicted, then that's when I'll stop going, not because of somebody else, because then my it's
Yeah.
sincere.
Yeah.
Me not going, I'm not being like legalistic. I'm not doing it like for law or for moral. Like it's because I know in my heart this place for me leads to temptation. And again, for some people, it's just about going to listen to music. For some people, it's about going to a hookup. I think people that go out dancing is not all the same level of sin. You know, I heard a pastor one time say, you know, if you throw you know, a naked woman in front of the altar, I'll be fine. But if you throw some crack in front of the altar, then I'm gonna have a problem because different people have different struggles, different temptations. So I think it's the same when you get into nightlife. So maybe for some, they
Yeah.
shouldn't go. What I end up coming to is I don't feel convicted by going out dancing and having a glass of wine with my
Yeah.
friends. And for me, it was a release because it's like I finally feel like I am fully into my own as a young
Mm-hmm.
woman and as a lover of God and a believer in Jesus, where I have figured out my what that outline what it looks like
Yeah.
for me. So it was a more of a sense of freedom for me when I finally was like, well, no, you know, when you get to that personal relationship with God, and it's not just only going off pastor, because unfortunately, pastors are humans, church leaders are humans, and a lot of their personal preference and opinion
Right.
becomes fact. Like there's nowhere in the Bible that says 3 inches below is obeying God, and 3 inches above my knee
Mm-hmm.
is sin. That was personal preference
It's
put into
cultural.
the church's
Yeah. It's cultural.
doctrine, and then it became
Yeah.
law. Yeah, and then oh thanks, Missy Pooh, and then that just ends up turning into well it's sin because the pastor said that's not okay. Well, really, it's just the pastor's
Yeah.
personal preference. And so when I got past personal preference and me and God started getting like this, because one thing about dark times, God kind of become your bestie. Y'all like
All
talking
day.
all day, every
Yeah.
day. You getting to know him real well, and y'all having these conversations. And so it's like, bump the church, bump everybody, because me and God
Yeah.
like this. And based off of my conversations with him, I don't feel bad about going out dancing and having a glass of
Mm.
wine. And I feel good about the fact that now, if I want to go shake it, I don't feel bad
Yeah.
about it. So that's where the Beyonce song took me is like, yeah, I'm doing the best I can. I love God, and guess what? If I want to go out dancing, I'm gonna go, and I won't be made to feel
Yeah.
bad. And that's why I
So
love the
to
song.
the point though, you just mentioned about not being made to feel bad about it. What do you do to not feel bad about it? Because it's not going nowhere. We are, we're Southern people, so interested in listening to this, and we're gonna break down some of the lyrics. I'm gonna ask you about specific parts of the lyrics and like how you feel about it. But interested, I think Beyonce being Southern, she can really relate to that idea of like what it is. Again, going back to like the Destiny's Child days, they were like church good girls, right? And
Mhm.
then now we see a completely different Beyonce. What do you say to those people, or how do you address, not even say to the people, but how do you address the still accusations that you are not as godly as you used to be, or not as churchy? I know for us churchy has like a negative connotation, but for some people they expect you to be, the church girl. What do you say, and how do you address those?
Ooh, well, see, the thing is now, like, my villain origin story already
Okay.
happened, so like, I don't really. I'll probably. It just depends on who it is, because honestly, you can tell where a person's coming
Yeah.
from. Whether they're really trying to have a conversation and share what's on their heart out of care for you, or if they're just listening to debates, or if they're trying to like gaslight you to like go off. So it depends on who, because for some people I'll be like, great, great, thank you. Next
Right.
question. Um, for some people, it's like, I'm sorry, I don't have nothing for you. Like, I only have a little bit of energy, and I just don't have any of it to give to you. Like, I'm
Yeah.
budgeted, and
Yeah.
like, I'm already at zero, so I don't have nothing for you. So for some, it's that. If it's some that really want to have that conversation, I would kind of just, oops, I thought that was going to be on the start. I would kind of just say what I said to you, that, I had to go on my own journey with my relationship
Hmm.
with God, and with what God requires of me as his child. And where I landed personally, because it is personal relationship, where I landed based off of my knowledge and study of the word, based off of my relationship with God, is I don't feel convicted by
Mm.
this. If you feel like I should, please take me to God in prayer. But I just
Yeah.
don't. And I feel confident enough about my relationship with God that I'm okay with that. Like, I can live with that. And I encourage you to not go based off of what they say is Christian and not, but base it off of your personal study, your relationship with God, even consulting people that you feel like are more knowledgeable in the word than you. Because I do think in every facet of life, you should have some type of mentorship or someone that you can go to.
Hmm.
Spiritual, whether it's spiritual advisors, or whether you have a career and you want to speak with someone that's farther along in that career. I
Mentorship.
do believe in that. I don't feel like you just like go
Yeah.
rogue and just, well, this was good to me, so do it. But like, do your due diligence to come to a decision that you
Yeah.
can live with. And I would say that for anything. And that's just, I just happen to come to that decision. Because I do think like a lot of people hide behind the fact that they don't go out dancing, but they're still like a hot mess. Like, so we can't go off
Yeah.
of that. And so I've always landed on the Great Commission, which is love God, love people, and you know a tree by the fruit it
Hmm.
bears. And so if the fruits of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, goodness, kindness, faithfulness, against such things there is no law. If I am doing that and I'm loving God, loving people, I'm
Yeah.
okay with that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in that, right? Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
hold on one second, because Janelle had
Okay.
said something.
I can't
I feel
see.
all of this, and I never really thought about how that church girl stigma made me miss out on a lot of things, especially my relationship with friends. Yes, yes, because you're made to feel like you can't have that. You need to like be completely in the church house at
Yeah.
all times, and all of your friends need to be the friends that you have through church, and you can't have friends through your other organizations. Or if they don't want to go to church with you, you shouldn't be friends with them because unequally yoked. But like, it can't just be church people with church people all the
How
time.
you
How are
connect
you
to people
connecting with
outside of it? Yeah.
non-believers if all your time is being
Right.
split
Right.
with
Right.
believers? But that's a whole other conversation. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say to that though, in considering like, because so for me, the song is definitely about like having a good time, but I kind of thought about it also from like, I guess a higher level of like kind of just giving yourself permission to be free. She has a line in there where she says like, nobody can judge me but me. I was born free. So even if you taking it outside of like just going and like dancing, right, or being like in a club, just thinking about just kind of like living life, right? And exploring. I think it seems to kind of speak to on a different level for me this idea of like whatever that thing maybe for you it's not like going and dropping it like a thotty, right? But just kind of just being yourself and exploring yourself. And you are still doing God's work in it. There's a line in there that she says, like, you know, you're doing God's work. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like the song was intentionally meant for like, you know, going to church, going to the club versus going to church, like that juxtaposition? Or could you see, or do you see it speaking to kind of like a higher level of like exploring whatever that is for you to be you, like meaning for you?
I never actually thought about that, and I love your perspective and insight. Like, I could totally see that being part of her intention
Yeah.
behind it. I never really thought of that being. It means I was more so like probably in my pool of tears at that point, so I didn't get to like explore a lot of the other perspective. But I do think that it is almost like a higher calling, as in what does freedom look
Mm-hmm.
like for you, you know? And almost even you living free and you being in this space, and what it can
Yeah.
lead to for others, or just allowing you to be what you feel like is your best and
Uh-huh.
authentic self, and how you can like do more for yourself and the whole world. I loved that. I was born
Yeah.
too, so I'm glad you brought
So I'm gonna
and then that also ties to there being no condemnation as
mm-hmm.
well. I feel like I love that passage as
Yeah, so
well.
there's I'm gonna read a line to you. You can just tell me what you think about it, and we can just kind of just dive into that. So one of the lines says it says, "I'm finally on the other side. I finally found the urge to smile, swimming through the oceans of tears we cry. You know you got church in the morning, but you're doing God's work. You're going in. What do you think that means?"
I think, well, all the part before that, I think it was what I was speaking to about just when you have that aha moment like I had where, you know what, I'm
Yeah.
okay. I'm okay with, you know, having this moment of going out dancing with my friends. I'm okay with that. And it's like, oh, it feels so good to not be burdened down by these church girl
Yeah.
expectations. Um, I feel like she was being a little tongue in cheek personally when she said you're doing God's
Okay.
work. Because I feel like, you know, you're in the club, you're dancing good, you're looking good, you're blessing the
Okay.
people, or you
Okay.
blessing the men in the club. And so you're doing God's work because,
Wow. Okay.
girl, you know, you must be an angel looking like that. I feel like she was being a little
Okay.
chooky.
Okay. So it's funny because I actually took that in a less, again, a less literal, but I think it speaks to, nobody telling me I ain't getting dressed, and
Yeah,
yeah,
artist
nobody's telling me
objective.
I'm getting dressed. They're like, oh, you're doing God's work. It's like, all right, you look good. Let's move on. But I kind
Right.
of took that as doing God's work and being in that space and kind of taking care of yourself is also doing God's work. That's what I took that as. I took it
Mm.
as like, hey, you are, you're in this space where you finally getting over all the tears and the stress and all of, whatever it is that's been bogging you down, and you just going to have a good time. That's a part of God's work, taking care of your body. This is the vessel that
Like a
us self,
self-care
yeah, yeah.
version.
That's what it, so for
Oh,
me, that's what I took it as, her saying like, hey,
I
yeah,
love
like church
that.
girls, you are a part of the stress. And again, you and I have talked about this in the past. I remember, if I can, and if I go too far, tell me to shut up. Um,
No, you
I
don't.
remember there's a period of time in your life where you started to stand up for yourself and you started to, speak your mind. Yeah,
Speak
and
my
use your voice,
question.
really. I think a lot of you, again, you checked off the box of like everything that a good Christian church girl is supposed to do, right? And then there was a time, and I'll even admit, even for me, that I thought that I knew who Tiffany was, and then Tiffany said something that I didn't think that was Tiffany, and I was like, what?
And I'm sorry if I was too
And I
harsh.
was like,
Look,
wait,
I was
yeah,
figuring that thing. I was like overcompensating for
yeah.
sure. It was like, okay, she went to no
To
voice to
like, God
whoa.
damn, all right, to chill. Time out, cuz, my bad. I'm sorry. So I feel like with you though, that's your journey. Like I feel like that's a part that I knew, and I remember having a conversation with you where you were just like, look, I'm tired of people having this idea or these expectations of who I'm supposed to be, and then getting pissed off when I just want to be who I am. Like, and not even being disrespectful. I'm not cursing nobody out. I ain't slapping nobody. I'm just saying, no, I don't like that and I don't want to do it. And then everybody's like, oh, why she's doing that?
Yeah, like you said
Yeah,
no.
yeah, like that word almost kind of like when kids learn the word no and people be like, dang, why they keep saying no? It was like a similar thing, but at the time, I think you were like in your 20s. Like, so you would live, so much of your life. Again, because I never got, it was never that you were like a yes person, or I never felt like you were a yes person. You certainly had an opinion, but I think you were always more cognizant of like, how you said things and how it affect other people. And then the shift was just like, no, like I'm not doing, like this is me, and you take it for however it is, but this is what it is. Um, I feel like a person like you and me interpreting that line was like, it's kind of speaking to you doing that is a part of your own self-care, and it's a part of your ability to then go and do whatever it is you need to do for God, because you are making an intentional choice to do it, right? And not like, you just doing it because like this is what I'm supposed to do and I gotta like, do it right. But it's like it's just it's your choice. And you can do it, to the fullest because you really are choosing to do it. Um
It's
no,
funny.
go
Oh, sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. I was gonna say that it was funny you were saying that that leads to you doing God's work, because you got me thinking about so many things, and it did for me, because I think I was so hard with my standing in my position
Mm-hmm.
on things, because my soft nose always turned into
Mm,
yeses, because I would be easily dissuaded away from that to, well, I really need you to do this, I really need you to do that, and me being firmer in it made it stick a little better with
okay.
me. And it also led to me doing God's work, because so many of the things that y'all see walking out now and coming to fruition now were ideas that I have had on the shelf for decades
Okay.
that I did not take off the shelf to try to execute or make it shake, because I always felt like I needed to the nth degree, put God's people first. Whereas, okay, maybe I want to start a dance company, or maybe I want to write a script, but they need me to be stage manager over here. They want me to be a part of this praise dance thing over here. Or my friend has a production they're trying to put on. So let me just do this. Or even performing arts link up. Let me big up all the other performers in this area, knowing that I have gifts of my own. But I'm not going to worry about those, because the bigger mission is to big up all the other performers in Jacksonville. So it's easier to say yes to everybody else's stuff, and then you look up 10, 15 years later, and you haven't even dusted
Any
off,
of your own
you
stuff.
haven't even unburied your own
Yeah.
talents, or giving your own talents their due diligence that people are waiting to be blessed by, because you're so busy trying to build
Yeah.
the church. So when I said no, it helped me start saying yes to taking a look at the ideas, the God ideas that
For
were
yourself.
inside of me. So that's really interesting you
Yeah,
said that.
yeah. So there's another line. It says, where is it? It says, I'm warning everybody, as soon as I get to this party, I'm gonna let go of this body. I'm gonna love on me. Nobody can judge me but me. I was born free. What do you think about that?
I love that line. I love that lyric, because I feel like it's kind of like saying, first of all, when I get here, I'm really about to cut
Yeah.
loose. I'm really about to cut up. So just be ready, because I have been waiting for the opportunity to do this for so
Yeah.
long. When I finally get here, everybody needs to look out, because I am free now. I'm about to release, like Big Frida says, release the stress, release it, release it. Yes. So I took that from it, and it's also, I feel like it's that moment of y'all better look out, because when I finally figure this thing called life
Yeah.
out, and when I figure out the balance of how much time to give to the church house, how much time to give to myself, how much time to give to my relationships outside of my church family, when I figure out how to do that
Yeah.
thing, I'm gonna be like a whole new me, and y'all aren't
Yeah.
ready. Y'all aren't even ready for what the free me, the free from the church girl me looks
Yeah.
like. So I think it's like a
Okay.
twofold. Oh, I think that was
Yeah, I
really
can
good.
see that. What do you feel like, and just I'm gonna say it and you can tell me what you think. Do you feel like it kind of may also speak to kind of like an acceptance of your body? Because it says like, she's like, I'm going to let go of this body and I'm going to love on me. So almost like an acceptance. So you talked about kind of the church girl that has curves that she can't hide. And she's like trying to, she's very mindful about like, what this looks like, what my body looks like in this. So let me put on this. So let me do this. And this line is being like, you know what? I'm going to let go of this body and I'm just going to love on me. So just kind of speaking to like, just accepting what you have and moving with that.
I'm glad that you brought up that line again because I was so stuck on the first part, but that's a good one to like. We don't want to let that go. We don't want to throw that away. That line is a really important, and I absolutely agree with that. And for those that watch my Illuminate Birthday series, not the interview you did with me, but there was another interview I did in the series that we talked about modesty and Christianity. And so I suggest y'all go back and look at that if y'all haven't. But I would agree that when she says let go of this body, like she is saying I won't be made to feel bad for being a church girl that has a body. And I won't be made to feel like the whole burden falls on me to make sure a man doesn't stray. Because that's not all on me. I'm going to do my best, like she said in another lyric. But at the end of the day, if you're a man with testosterone, whether my pencil skirt is tight, or a loose pencil skirt, you still gonna see the proportion. You still gonna see the circumference.
On the circumference.
And so,
y'all, she got a biology degree. I just want y'all to know. Y'all, I love when my creative cousin flexes this. She's like, you gonna see the circumference. It's what it is. Like, I love it.
You are so funny. But yeah, I agree with that. And even going back to the church girl thing, as far as modesty in church, I feel like there is less of a burden put on a man, even with talking about what he may wear to church. Because all he has to do to be considered a good church boy is to be there. He just has to be there with a Bible in his hand. And don't let him stand up during praise and worship and lift up a hand. Oh, Jesus, take me now. He's a perfect church boy. They don't need to know nothing else. They don't need to know what his personal life is like. They don't need to know that he is texting half of the soprano section. The fact that he is there. The fact that he is there with a Bible in his hand and he don't have to get any questions about his attire or how form-fitting his church slacks may be because I'm a church girl. I mean, I don't have issues with stumbling or my eyes. I don't have those issues because, I mean, it's easy for a girl not to be tempted by her eyes because she doesn't have that carnal nature that a man has. So if his shirt is the shirt that he wears to church is a little bit form-fitting, even without him trying, if he has been, which you know about this, if he has been doing his chest presses, the pecs are going to be there. There's only so much he can do to hide them. So even if he has on a regular polo that isn't 3 centimeters long, you're going to fall over them. But he isn't made to feel bad about me being able to see his pectoral muscles and his firm behind because he is a church boy. Him being in the building with his hands lifted is all he needs to be a church boy. But a church girl, she got to be there. She got to make sure the curves are covered. She got to make sure that she is in all of the ministries. She got to make sure she's presenting herself as a godly woman to get her future husband. And so it's like another area that there is such a discrepancy. And so having that moment where it's like, oh, I can breathe. I don't have to worry about when I stand up during prayer to make sure that I have on my cardigan covered, or even that my cardigan isn't wrapped too tight like a Diane von Furstenberg wrap dress. I need to make sure that it's loose. I can't even let my cardigan be wrapped because, I stood up for prayer and he saw my hip and now he's looking and now it's my fault. That he's
Don't forget your prayer cloth. You got to have your prayer cloth and put over your knees. And you got to put
Kevin, you're so funny talking about circumference.
Is this song or in the conversations that will come out of this? Because of course it's Beyonce, so people got think pieces. I got on. I heard you mention like y'all don't come with your think pieces if you haven't heard it. Is this song a trying to eliminate the church girl, or trying to liberate the church girl, or just not doing either and just talking about church girls? because I heard somebody refer to it
Man.
also as a church twerk song, which was real. I was like doing some reading, and I was like, a church twerk, like. I don't know if that's like what she was trying to do. I don't think she was saying go to church and twerk. Like I don't think that was it. But just in the just the topics that it's a bounce, have a good time type of song, but in typical
Mhm.
true artist of like Beyonce is form, she gives you some nuggets to think about. So do you think this is something that she's saying like, let's eliminate death to the church girl image, or is it like let's liberate her and give her some nuance to do some other things?
I like that. It's a great question. I want to first address. She definitely didn't make this like a part of like what should be church tracks, like soundtracks, like what they call it, like pop
Yeah, yeah,
songs,
yeah. It's not that.
like Erica, like
Yeah, you don't love
oh God.
God.
I don't think she was trying to make it in
Right.
that genre.
That's not it.
Like she
I'm
definitely
certainly I'm
wasn't.
certain she's not.
Even though I will say, for all of these haters, um, the Clark sisters and Twinkie absolutely
Yeah.
approved this single. Approved the sample. I saw a post because Mama Tina gonna give her receipts and her sold away. She posted on her Instagram um, the Clark sisters entertainment attorney and just the process of Beyonce getting the sample
Hmm.
from them and how they were
Yeah.
excited for Church Girl to be released. So I think, and if you watch the Clark Sisters movie, I think they completely get what Beyonce was trying to do with
Absolutely.
it because they had to deal with a lot of that themselves. But they knew even she wasn't meaning it for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It wasn't
It's not a
for
gospel
back
song.
to your
Yeah, this
basics.
isn't supposed to be a
Yeah,
gospel
yeah,
song.
yeah.
It's
No,
not.
no, no. She wasn't
Yeah.
going for that. I think that it's a little bit of
Okay.
both. I think it's, a church girl is never going to be exactly what you think she should. So let's just get rid of the title. Let's just get rid of the stigma. Just throw the whole word away. But if we're going to keep it, let's flip it on its head. Let's liberate her.
Okay.
So I think it's probably like twofold. I know if I had heard this song when I was in my 20s trying to still figure out what it means to be a Christian woman and everything that comes with that. If I would have heard this song, it would have given me a little comfort. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of people feel like she is encouraging church girls to like live a
Hmm.
double life and be in the church and be in the clubs. But I don't think that's what she's trying to say. I think she's just trying to say, be you. But sometimes being the perfect church girl drives you to the club for a
Yeah.
release. It's like a little bit of
Okay.
both.
There's one part of the song that I don't even have any thoughts. I don't know it's like any ideas of what it's about. I'm trying to find it. So there's a specific lyric where she talks about like her friends cried tears and something she wants to like hang out with her friends that don't got a man. Um,
Let me see if
Gosh,
I can
there's
find it.
a. I'm about to. No, what's it out? Let's see. So must be cashing in your face. Do it, baby, and I'll spend it right there. Drop it. Uh,
We need to talk about that lyric too because people taking that as she talk about Jay-Z and she was married.
must be. Oh, I mean, sometimes people.
Okay, so you think so. So let me tell you what I thought
Uh
about
huh.
that lyric. I thought she was turning on its head because I do listen to, I have my days where I'm just for the real ratchetness. There is a song that men, um, that has a line that goes, must be your
Hmm.
ASS because it ain't your
Yeah.
face. Because that's the term for like a butthead, a girl that has a great body, but they feel like she has an ugly
But
face.
that's
And the
yeah.
song says it must be that your
Yeah.
ASS, but it ain't your face. I feel like she was taking
Yeah.
that lyric and flipping it and saying, okay, y'all think our value is our body, then yours is the
Yeah. Yeah. I
cash.
didn't know that.
It must be the cash because it
Yeah.
ain't your
That's what.
face. I don't think she's talking to Jay
Well, I mean, she
Z
married to the
saying,
dude, and
hey,
she got 3 kids. Like,
but she already was rich when she
yeah,
got with him.
yeah. I
Like,
no. I
she
don't think.
already, she needed
I,
him.
the interesting thing is, I think the idea I saw earlier that people were like Jay-Z when he heard that line, and it's like, but you can't really think she's talking to him. She married to him, and she got kids with him, and her kids look like him. So like, clearly that's not.
And she was rich when
Yeah,
she
yeah,
married
she
him.
was
So she was
already
like,
like established, and also if you know their story and you listen to like Jay Z lyrics, like he wanted to marry her well before she, yeah, way
way.
before she was even okay with doing so. So like that's not,
She made him wait
yeah,
10
it's like
years
that's
to make
not,
sure what she liked in her 20s was still what she liked in her
yeah,
30s.
it's
So I
not,
don't don't think she was trying to get into the coin.
Yeah, it's like that's not what we're doing. Um, Gosh, I can't. There's a lyric. She's the best she can. Have her own with her friends without a man. There it is. So she says, but you're doing God's work. She
Okay.
says she ain't trying to hurt nobody. She's just trying to do the best she can. We talked about that. And she says, happy on her own with her friends without a man. What do you think that means? Or even
So
the intent
I would
for it?
take it
Yeah.
for me. For me, it would be speaking to a little bit of what I said earlier about part of being the quintessential church girl is making sure you are godly woman, wife material, because your work is tied into not only a relationship with God, but are you marriable? Because, it's the Holy Grail to, get married. Like that's supposed to be the ultimate girl. You are an amazing woman if you can get a
Okay.
husband. It's kind of the narrative that's put out there. Whether it's meant to or not, that's kind of how it comes
Okay.
across. And so I think she's saying happy on her own with her friends without a man to say that I'm not a bad church girl if I don't have a husband.
Mm.
And I can like go out and have fun with my friends without a man and still be a church girl. Like, I don't have to. But you could also take it that she don't always have to go out with her man, that she just wants to go out with her friends sometimes. So you could take it like a less deeper way and take it
Yeah.
that way. But of course, that's how I'm gonna take it because I'm like, yes. If I have a great man in my life, great. But if I don't, that doesn't make me any less valuable, or that I'm not. The absence of a man doesn't mean that I'm doing something wrong and not presenting myself as wife. Maybe it just hasn't happened, or he just is on.
Okay. Okay. All right. The line that talks about, she does a thing where she talks about like a bad, it's in different ways. So in one she's saying like bad girl acting naughty, church girl don't hurt nobody. There's another one she says like church girl getting loose, bad girl acting snotty. Why do you have you thought about like why she kind of puts those two, she's talking about like two types of woman, like the bad girl and the church girl, like in the same line?
I do think it was intentional. I thought of it more as when I said earlier, there's like different types of reasons the church girl would go
Yeah.
to the club, and one of them is to be
Okay.
rebellious.
Okay.
So she's like intentional, like, I'm darned if I do, I darned if I don't. I'm trying to be this perfect church girl, and they're still looking at me like, this stigma and villainizing me because they think that I'm coming in here trying to just like tip the whole church. So let me just lean into
Yeah.
that. Let me just be rebellious and lean into that because y'all are still going to accuse me of being a type of church girl anyways. So now I'm going to act like this bad girl that you say that I am. And I'm going to be you be careful what
Yeah.
you ask for. Be careful what you speak up for me because now I'm doing it. I'm leaning
Yeah.
in. I'm rebelling. So now I'm the bad girl acting raunchy.
Okay.
And you shouldn't be surprised because you said this is how I was
So if you said it,
anyway.
I'm just, yeah, here we
Here
go.
we
Let's
are.
do it. As a because I would still consider you a church girl.
I mean, I feel
Yeah, I guess
like,
I don't know, and maybe it's just a thing of like, I mean, you my family, so like I feel like there are
right.
parts of me, there's parts of you that I know that like other people don't know or don't get to see, like on social media and things like that. So maybe that's why I'm still like, I mean, my cousin's still saved, like I know her. What do you say as somebody though that is kind of out of that traditional church girl or the historical church girl space? And you're kind of in a space that you're defining it for yourself, right? You still love the Lord, but you still allow yourself to, live life, really, in my opinion. What do you say to the person that may not be in that space, young or old, really, and probably even more so older, because I think we both realize that a lot of folks kind of live their life under the expectations of other people, and then they get old and they have like this midlife crisis because they're like, "Who am I? What do I do?" Yada yada yada. What do you say to those people? Who just don't understand your perspective and may like need some sort of release.
Oh man. Well, I would just say first of all, Fantasia said free yourself. I would say that first of all because that's what Fantasia said, and so you should do it. Obviously, Fantasia.
And she's also a church girl,
Um,
so yeah.
and she is. um, I would say if they don't see a need or if they're not there yet, to just kind of check in with
Okay.
themselves and not even just think about their experience, but think about the experience of all of the church girls in their life.
Mm.
And it's interesting because a lot of us have this same story. And just that itself deserves you taking a second look at why you do what you
Okay.
do. And that I'm sure it's something you got settled into, you get used to what you get used to, but that you owe it to yourself to kind of check in and see if it's a good time to kind of
Okay.
evolve and to redefine. And maybe I would even ask her, aren't you tired? Aren't you
Yeah.
tired of living up to this unrealistic thing that isn't all because of God's requirements of you, it's because of
Preferences and
preferences
culture.
in that particular body, in that particular church house, that have been put upon you, that you don't even know if you're doing it for God anymore, or if you're doing it to make sure that you come off how you're supposed to come off at that church house. Because I tell you one thing, you can only fake for
Mm-hmm.
so long, and it's going to catch up. And you won't want to have to wait for it to get to that. It's stressful. It is hard being a church girl. It is so stressful. And I think I would just say you owe it to yourself to kind of check in and make sure that you are happy and doing this for the right reason. And talk to God about it. Something that I learned in my last small group was quiet Christian
Mm-hmm.
meditation. And you just kind of like get in this quiet space. You're not praying. You're not talking to God. You're just kind of sitting
Being
and you're
still. Yeah,
inviting Him
being
in.
still.
And
Yeah,
yeah, just
yeah.
being still for 10, 20 minutes. And it can be so life changing. And so I would encourage her to do that and just kind of, instead of checking in with your pastor, check in with God directly and see what He has to say to you,
Yeah,
girl. And you might be surprised.
yeah. Do you tell her to listen to Church Girl or turn it off?
It depends on which church girl she is.
Yeah.
If she's the rebellious one, then she's gonna be like, "Oh well,
I
I don't
was
need to
gonna
listen
say
to
like
this."
it's already in the playlist. Right,
Check.
done. I already did it. Um, so I want to I just want to say, and we can kind of go into whatever. I kind of went through like the questions that I had that I wanted to ask you. But I just want to say I think that a lot of, I mean, this album in general, and people are still like listening to it, dissecting it. I just finished listening to it on Monday because it takes me a while to get through the songs, and I want to read the lyrics and think about what they mean and all that other good stuff. I think this song in many ways is about like liberation. Um, I wonder though, is there a space where is there such thing as being like too liberated? Is there such thing as being too like open, too free, et cetera, et cetera? Because I think that's kind of the theme throughout the album as a whole, but specifically since we're talking about Church Girl, I know we, growing up as like Southern Christians, there's an inherent conservativeness in that, right? Which promotes being like modest and less is more ultimately, if you will, right? Is there, and for you, is there anything wrong with being too, and when I say open, I'm not saying like taking your clothes off or nothing like that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying like going too far as like kind of, I'm questioning whether my space is the space for me. Like, can you ever do too much of that? Or is there some like, goodness in you being reserved, conservative, like, and I'm asking, going back to speaking to those church girls, really to get your perspective to them of like, what happens when they get pushback of saying like Beyonce's trying to open up a can of worms or open up Pandora's box, and you want to do that, like, is there such thing as being, too liberated, too free in being a church, being connected to God?
I definitely agree that there is such a thing as being too
Okay,
liberated.
okay.
And that's why I want to continue to push the narrative of
Mm-hmm.
intention. So you're choosing to dress a certain way or not, but make sure that you're checking in with God and yourself first. Because even for people that are listening that are not believers, there's a certain level of self-worth that
Yeah.
you should have. Now, obviously, I'm an artist. I've done dance. I was a massage therapist. So their skin doesn't freak me out as it may others because I see it in one space as a tool. Like I need to see those clean lines. I see it as a tool of your art, you know. In the other space, it's just for function. I mean, I need all those clothes off because I can't get to those muscles right without it. And I don't really care how your body looks. I'm not here for that. So, I have a different relationship with beauty than other people. And so that kind of plays into it. But I do feel like there is such a thing as being too liberated. And I would just say because I'm more of a person that I don't want to do anything for shock value. So I wouldn't want to be dressed a certain way just because I can't. Like just to prove a point, just to make you purpose. Because some people get so upset about being held in that they'll go to
thing.
They're doing it on purpose, just for the shock value, just to I want you to feel uncomfortable because I'm so mad at all of the time that you were making me.
Yeah.
I am a girl, and maybe this is the Southern belle in me. I do believe in dressing for the
occasion.
I love a good theme, and I love in dressing for the occasion. So how I might what an outfit I might wear to go out on a date or to post on my social media because I felt cute is not the same thing I would wear to church. The same thing I wear to church would be the same thing if I was standing in the pulpit at a church. So if like I was there to speak or if I was there to lead like a session with you, I would choose to be less liberated in that moment because of I am there not having a choice but to you know. So if it's a space where it's optional for you to look at me and you feel like looking at me may stumble, then just don't go to my social media page or don't look at me in the pews. But if I am standing in front of you and you got no choice but to look at me, then I'm going to go out of my way in those instances. Because now I can't say, oh, well, just don't look, because you have to look. Because the focus is on me. I'm the speaker. I'm the facilitator. So I would choose to be less liberated in that. And it also, I say it's important to like check in with God directly because with the Holy Ghost and with that relationship with God comes certain things that you don't even desire to do anymore. Like, you know, I could wear that day, but that doesn't even feel good to me to do that. But then my intention is different because I'm making that choice because of a conversation with God, not because of what they said. And so you really kind of block that chance to have those conversations with God. Because you're skipping him and going straight to what an outside is. So I'm just big on like talk to him directly. The veil was torn, okay, from top to bottom. You don't have to.
You got to go up to the upper room.
Go through anybody else. And ask what you need to ask and have those conversations and sit right there till you get your answer. Whether you hear a whisper, whether it's confirmation from a spiritual advisor that you know he's placed in your life, like there are ways to figure this thing out. And you can't just blindly follow and you don't even know why you're doing it and you're stressed out about the choice because you don't really know why you did it in the first place. So that liberation, I think, where you can be too liberated, I think is people that really don't even know why they're choosing to go there. They just because they can, they're doing it. And that can't be your reason to do everything. Because the Bible also says all things that are permissible aren't beneficial. And so that kind of has to play in as well. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so the question of when should I comes in your personal journey.
Okay. So, and I asked that because what I'm hearing you say, and I just wanted to clarify, make sure that that's clear, that there's space for both, right? There's space for you to be a church girl that is living outside of the bounds that are placed on her by other folks within the church, right? But then in doing so, she doesn't necessarily have to go completely whatever full left is, you know, to be like, you know, hey, I'm bearing my soul. I'm bearing everything on Instagram. Like, you don't have to be that in order to still have some sense of like some freedom, some liberation. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I think that is. I mean, I think that's a really great message, and it speaks to what makes sense about the song "Church Girl." That's why I really wanted to talk to you as a church girl about it, just because, like, again, you have like lived experience, and you know, I always say like, there's nothing like lived experience that can teach lessons to people that, you know, we may not get. And I know this is it's. You know, I pick on people for always taking these like pop culture things and making these huge think pieces. And technically that's kind of what we're doing. Sometimes, but it's good. Yeah.
You got to dig in though.
Yeah, it's good. Like I think it's really good though to uh kind of analyze it's art, just like we would go to like an art gallery and look at a piece and say like, what does this make you feel, what does it make you think, does it inspire anything? This is the same thing. So yeah, I think it's good conversation. Thank you for letting me, jump on the live and kind of ask you some questions. Do you have anything else like you want to say or you want to talk about?
There is
Yeah,
just
yeah,
one
yeah,
more
go.
thing,
I got
and
time.
I hate to get on the church
Okay.
boys because there are some
Okay.
amazing ones. But I do feel like I can't say enough, or I don't think we touched on enough about that double standard. We touched on it a bit. We talked about to be a model church boy, all he has to do is show up, have a Bible in his hand, and stand there and praise and worship. And oh my gosh, he's the perfect church boy. I need to marry him. Oh my God, he's
Yeah.
actually here. And don't let him look good too. Oh, and don't let him know the song. Don't let him know a hymn. Ah, that is the vibe. Like they don't question his attire, all of that. We said that. But I think the pressure that is put on a church girl to be this model
Hmm.
church girl, that if you're going to do that, then you need to raise the church boys to that same standard. It shouldn't be okay to crack the whip on church girls, but you're dismissing the promiscuous musician. You're dismissing the greasy deacon that's being inappropriate. Like, if there is a standard for church girls to be considered this model church girl, there needs to be a standard for them instead of it's just like a joke that everybody laughs off. And, oh, yeah, the drummer, girl, he was texting my daughter and your daughter. Boys will be boys.
Yeah.
No. If she is being accused of being promiscuous just based off of the skirt that she chose to wear to church, then don't be laughing that
Yeah.
off. Like, it needs to be
Come on,
EEOC up in here,
EOC.
is what I'm saying. You know? And it's so interesting because these guys that are looked at like these amazing model church
Hmm.
guys that maybe have a questionable life choices outside of the body. It's interesting when you were trying to be the model church girl and people are looking at you sideways if maybe the church guys are not wanting to marry you or be in a relationship with you. I will just say from my personal journey, I have went out on a date with a senior pastor. I have went out on a date with a youth pastor. The first DICK pick I ever received was from a
Ooh.
youth pastor. Okay, I have been out on dates with men in music ministry, like because I was in that world, and a lot of the guys that I was hoping could end up being a husband or something, and I'm being this model church girl, ended up not want to continue the relationship because I was abstinent. Most of y'all know my story. I didn't lose my virginity until I was 30 years old because I was serious about that church
Hmm.
girl thing. And so it's really interesting that a lot of things church guys aren't being challenged by, and you're trying to be this good church girl to get their attention, and they don't even want it. They want the stereotypical
Privately.
non-stigmatized church girl. They don't want
Yeah,
the real
privately
deal.
want that.
So,
Like privately. Yeah. I mean, I've been there,
right,
so I get it.
that's
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
That's important
Privately,
to
I,
say
I get
that.
it because I do think, and one of the things I'm gonna push back just a little bit, and not push back
Okay.
in from a disagreeing standpoint, but just offer a different perspective. I think a lot of the difference between the church girl and the church guy. I think that there is a expectation for the church boy or the church guy.
And see, you can speak
Yeah,
that
but I
better than me.
think the enforcement of it is a lot more private than it is public. I think that's the difference. I
Ah,
think you people in the church openly talk about the things that the church girl needs to do or her transgressions, the things that she is messing up on. I think everybody talk about that openly. When it's a church guy, I think for us it's like we talk about it on the side, or when you get home you might need to get to
okay.
men's ministry, and then that's when we gonna talk about it like in men's ministry, or we gonna create an entire like a small group for us, and then we kind of talk about
Yes.
that, but it's not something that's public. So yeah, so I think it exists, but I think it's just enforced different. The enforcement of it is different. But the other thing I wanted to say is, how much of that though do you think is like kind of societal norms as opposed to like a culture that's bred in church? And by that I mean, go ahead. If you
Well,
get it, if you get what I'm saying, go ahead.
I feel like societal norms have bled into
Hmm.
church culture, and we are in the patriarchal. I can never say it.
Patriarchal.
Say it for me.
Yeah.
Patriarchal. Say it.
Patriarchal society. You got
Yes, let's go. Thank you. I can never say it. That's the society that we're
Yeah.
in, and so some of that bleeds
Hmm.
in. So how there is a double standard with men and women and their expectations in society
Is the same
is the
thing in
same thing
church.
I think comes by
Yeah.
God. And so that's why it, for me or from my experience, there has been more accountability as far as dress, conduct, and all that on a church girl versus a church guy. Because in
Hmm.
society, there is less expectation. I mean, even we go to rape culture. Like, instead of saying, oh, you shouldn't have raped her, they're saying, well, what did she wear? See? I mean, he's a man. And it's that same thing when it comes to like the
Yeah.
guy. We can't say, oh well, him having that tight fitting polo on caused me to stumble because that what a woman stumble you're just expected to be strong. But then if our skirt is form
Hmm.
fitting, then the hem is coming down, and not that women shouldn't be checked, but the hem needs to come down on
On both sides.
both
Yeah.
sides
Yeah.
equally.
Whose responsibility?
Even maybe more so on the man because he's supposed to be
I
the
was just
leader.
about to get into that. I was going to say, so whose responsibility is it to change that from a church? Because we're talking specifically about church. From a church standpoint, whose responsibility is it to change that culture? Because we have, I, I mean, I venture to say, and don't kill me, I venture to say church women are a lot rougher than church men in terms of like
Okay.
enforcing those norms and those cultural
Right.
things. So whose responsibility is it to change that? Like, is does that lie as it relates to the church girl? Does that lie on like just church women changing their perception of that, or is it? And I guess the right answer is it relies on it's everybody, right? But I guess from a practical standpoint, in terms of like what can be done, do you go and challenge other church women to change their mindset, or do you challenge, the men in the church to change their mindset?
I think it's a couple of things. Well, obviously, always our
Hmm.
elders, our spiritual mothers and fathers, whoever God has placed to cover you. I think a burden falls on them if you were in their house of worship or under their leadership, or even if that's like you don't go to their church, but they're a personal mentor to you in your walk
Hmm.
with God. Um, and God will speak through them to share the truth in love, and realize that you're on your journey of dying to the flesh, and they know what stage in the journey you are, whether you're being discipled or you first came into the faith or you've been into the while, and they can see that maybe you've like had a moment of backsliding, because they have that
Hmm.
relationship with you. So that's one. Two, yourself. Again, going to what I was saying earlier, when you have that relationship, you can go to God directly and let Him have those conversations
Hmm.
with you, so that, and a lot of times you'll catch it before someone even else has to, because you've already been speaking to God on your own about, you know, Father, how can I grow? How can I be better? Speak to me. Let me sit in this quiet meditation, and what do you want to say to me? And He can speak to you about it before it even has to
Yeah.
get to them. You have that relationship, and so I think some of the accountability falls on you, and then on your leadership, and then overall, the whole culture of the church, I think, needs to kind of like be on the same
Yeah.
page.
Yeah.
Because there's not,
It's
it's
not.
not, it's like different in every church.
Completely different. I mean, I say all the time, like the biggest thing, one of the biggest influences of church that nobody talks about is culture. I watched the Clark Sisters movie, which I think is another reason. I feel like Beyonce does this very like intentional, like using the Clark Sisters the specific line of their song that they use, even the song that she used
Yes.
in this. I think she does this very intentional thing. But watching the Clark Sisters movies, and I feel like this is something that was very apparent. I feel like folks forgot about. They couldn't wear pants. Like I remember when women could not wear pants in my church.
Right.
Women growing up could not wear pants
Yeah.
at church.
or
Yeah, and
earrings
so it's interesting.
or red
Right.
lipstick.
And so it's interesting being like, I remember the time that like that was it was a no-no, like women didn't do it. And now, the pantsuit is like a thing. And I think nobody talks about how culture really impacts the way that we read and interpret the Bible, the way that we even interact with each other. And I think it's important for us to notice simply because that's going to inform whether it's godly or if it's me, right? Whether we all got together and said this thing was bad or whether this really is something that God said is bad. We don't talk about culture, and culture is always changing. And so we talk about outside of the church, like,
Yes.
oh, the world's essentially kind of going to hell and everything is going bad and yada yada yada, but we're not talking about how that reality impacts what we do here. Like it has a real impact. That cultural piece, I feel like we just kind of let it go.
No, you're right. I mean, even when it comes to women in church culture, like, back in the day, women had to sit in the back pew. So you can't say that how things have been for women in the church have always been the same. You can't
Mm-hmm.
say that because it's just not true. Like there was a time that women couldn't even speak. I mean, some churches still now believe women can't be
Right.
pastors, but there's been
Yeah.
changes um, over the
Mm-hmm.
centuries. And like you said, pants was a big
Pans
one,
was, yeah.
you know. And so that even gets into so now women can wear skirts and pants, but the men still can't wear
Yeah.
skirts and pants, which I think is hilarious to me. Like
Right.
again, well, let me see if I can say it this time. That patriarchal.
There you
I
go.
said it. Society. It's like the culture we decided women can wear pants now to church, but it's still really weird that it's like, but y'all do know that women can do both now. But if a man does both, then he's not a real
Yeah.
man. Like, where do y'all make up this
Yeah,
stuff? But
yeah.
anyway,
A whole
that's
other,
a
yeah.
whole
I was gonna
nother
say it's a whole
topic.
other conversation.
I don't
Yeah.
want to get too far with the church girls.
Yeah, that's a,
And we've been on here for over an hour,
yeah.
but this was
Yeah.
rich. This
Yeah.
conversation was rich.
Absolutely.
Thank you for wanting to interview me because I feel like if I would have just flirted emotionally, some things would have gotten lost. So the question and answer format, I think, served this conversation
Yeah.
really well. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you for that
Yeah.
so
No,
much.
thank you for letting me. I really want to. I like picking your brain. I like picking creatives' brains in general. And specifically, again, Church Girl, literally, before when the track dropped, I thought about the song. I remember telling somebody, I was like, this is going to be a record where Beyonce is flipping the idea of a church girl on its head. I know it. And when I listened to it, yeah,
You
when
was
I
right.
listened to it, there are certain girls, women in my life that came to mind, and I think you were like the second person I thought about. There was one person I thought about because we recently had a conversation about it, and you were the second person I thought
Okay.
about, and I was like, oh, I wonder what my cousin thinks about this. And then when I saw, literally, it was this guy. I clicked on Facebook, saw your thing, and I was like, oh, wait, is she doing this? When you doing this? Like, how can we talk about the church girl? Because I want to know what you think. So no, I'm glad you agreed to do it, and I think this is going to be helpful to honestly to anybody that is in the church space, even outside the church space. People talk about like folks leaving church, and you leave church, but you still have to deal with that has influenced who you are, right? And so, even like for myself, even as a man, like I try to challenge myself with a lot of things. The whole like men wearing skirts. Personally, I don't want to wear a skirt, but like, why is that wrong?
Right.
If somebody does, why does that mean
Right.
that this person is not a man? Like, so I think this conversation about church girls is going to be like super helpful to everybody that hears
Yes.
it. And yeah, I don't know how like the whole saving the live thing go, but yeah, what
Oh yeah, it'll
okay, I
it'll
was
should
gonna say once that
automatically read
happens, we're
that.
gonna do the whole like let's pub it out here because I actually yeah I think your
Yes.
insight is really dope and yeah I think it'll help a lot of people. Yeah,
Yes. Thank you for everyone that tuned
absolutely.
in and gave your insight. Thank you for the people that shared it. If you watch it on the replay, thank you for taking the time to come back and watch. If you watch it all the way to the end, you a real one. It's worth every
All the
minute.
minutes.
Um, Beyonce, thank you for this record, Girls Like
Yes.
Me. And I really just hope that our conversation really gives some insight to somebody out there that doesn't really know about the culture, or someone that is within the culture and was kind of on the fence as to if this song was a good thing or bad thing for the phrase
Yeah.
church girl. I can only share my experience being a Christian since the age of 12 and my journey being a church girl. And so I know I'm not the only one.
Mhm.
So I hope that it freed somebody or that it helped somebody. I am a true believer in transparency. And so I'm happy to put my story out there if I can help anyone in any way. And I just love the opportunity to do
No.
so.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. This has been good. And if you got something else you want to talk about, just let me know. We can dissect. We can
Oh,
dissect the
say
album.
less.